not necessarily reflect the opinions and viewpoints of the staff and management of this station.
Welcome to the wonderful world of seniors, the best of all worlds. You now have the time, resources, and ability to enjoy what you have worked for all your life. So let's explore the many possibilities available to seniors on Senior World Radio. Senior World Radio is your source for senior citizens-related topics, information, and entertainment. Now, here is your host of Senior World Radio, Glenn Howard.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio, and it truly is wonderful to be a senior, especially if you have good health, a great retirement opportunity to travel, many of the benefits that some of us enjoy. But the fact is, many of our seniors find that life is not really that kind of an experience for them. When you're poor and hungry and sick and worst of all, homeless, you need somebody to help you, and we are very fortunate today in that we've got a lot of services, government services, to help people in need. We've talked to quite a few of those organizations. We've had a lady on here who was working with the Oklahoma City Housing Authority. We've also been talking to the various groups that provide feeding programs for seniors. But unfortunately, there's some of those who fall through the cracks and really do need some help. The other day I was attending a luncheon with a bunch of seniors, visiting with my old friend Mark McAdow. Mark is the senior pastor of the First United Methodist Church in Oklahoma City, church that I was quite involved with and worked with from 2000 to 2007. They decided they no longer needed an old bald-headed man around any longer, so that's when Miss Ellen told me, "You're not going to sit around the house here and harass me. You get out and get something to do." So we started Senior World Radio, and we've had a great time, but it's been so nice to have the friendship of Mark. And when I was talking to him about the church, I said, "Mark, how's things going at the church?" And he said, "Really very good." He said, "We've got a very interesting program right now providing assistance to the homeless. And in their location, they've got a great opportunity to work with these people." And I said, "Tell me more." And as we discussed it a little bit, he said, "We've got a lady by the name of Mary Walbert, who is the coordinator of our Friday night live program. She and her husband, Tom, have been working with us in this. And I kind of like the things they told me about it. So I said, "Mark, why don't you come on the show today and tell us a little bit about what's going on?" They agreed to do it, and they're right here in the studio with me. Mark, good to have you and Mary with us in the studio. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you, Glenn. It's great to be with you, brother, always. And thanks for the opportunity to get to share a little bit about a very vital ministry that's a part of the First Church. As you know, we're located at 4th and Robinson, downtown Oklahoma City. So we have a strong homeless population in the downtown Oklahoma City area. And several years ago, about 5 years ago, I guess, we were approached as a church family to see if we would be willing to host a breakfast Monday through Friday that had been at City Church for many, many years. But they were no longer able to host that breakfast, and they needed a place where homeless could come every morning for breakfast, and they looked to us. And so after some prayer and discussion, we made a decision that we would be that host site, and we did that for over 2 years until Westtown was built, and now they've taken that breakfast on and have a lot of different ministries and agencies that are able to help the homeless, not too far from our church, but that's where that's housed. But I think
one of the things that I have really appreciated about the Methodist Church is that their charitable arm has been very effective. I remember when I was down there, we tried to do a little bit of stuff, not that much, but Skyline Ministry on over there around 15th and Central, a tremendous deal. I've gone down there and, watched them feed. In that particular case, mostly elderly who, we think about the poor being those out on the street corner begging, but the fact is a lot of those elderly people living in their home are having a very difficult time. In fact, a former associate of mine down there, Foy Conrad, had a ministry to widows, and he made a statement that I've never forgotten. He said, "The majority of widows who are in poverty were not in poverty before they lost their husbands."
Is that right?
And you realize, they are people who really need something. And First Church had a real heritage, I would say, involved in this type of thing. Yeah. Mary, how did you get involved with him on this?
Well,
Pastor Mark just welcomed this breakfast into First Church, and it was 5 days a week, from 5 o'clock in the morning until 7 in every day, Monday through Friday. And my husband and I had just started going to church not too long, maybe a few months, and when this all came about, and when Pastor Mark said, yes, bring it on. So he opened the doors for this ministry to be birthed in First Church. So I started volunteering about 3 mornings a week. I did that for 2 years, and out of that, I just started, I'd had a burden for about 25 years that I knew the Lord had called me to do something for the poor, because our mission statement is Isaiah 61, 1 through 3, and it's a commission. We're to, as Jesus was anointed, and he said we are to preach good news to the poor. So that's how it originally started.
Good news to the poor. I like that. I must confess, my first experience with anything like this was way back in my college days. That probably was back before you got involved in the ministry, Mark. I'm an old man. But when I was going to college, we used to go down to the City Rescue Mission on, I believe it was California or maybe Reno. I don't know.
California, yes.
And they would gather up, frankly, it was leftover donuts or rolls from whatever restaurants might have had them left over the night before. And since I was working part-time for a pest control company, I would go down there. We would find these guys, and some of them were very talented.
Yes,
we would hire them as door knockers to go out and knock doors to try to do business. And, of course, many of them did have problems with alcoholism or whatever, so they would work good for about 6 months, and then, they were off on a bender, and we were always trying to get some more. Yeah. And so that, I didn't see it as a ministry I was really using in those days, but the idea of ministry to this type poor, you focused here on a group of people that is very difficult to work with.
That's for sure. Mary can tell you a lot about that. Absolutely.
Right. Well, I think that back to what you had said at first, Glenn, you were talking about the elderly, and the question comes to me is that, who are the homeless in Oklahoma City? Who are they? And we always think of the addicts, the drug addicts. We always think of the alcoholics. And but a lot of these people are people just like you and I that have been successful, that have accomplished things. I can think of one man that is just, he happens to be a senior. He's at retirement age, but he was a school teacher, a successful school teacher. In fact, one of our volunteers out of our church came to volunteer a couple weeks ago, and she saw this man, and it was one of her teachers that she had, that he had taught her years ago. And this man is a wonderful, dear, dear soul, but he's got an addiction, and that addiction came from a divorce, a broken family. And so one thing leads to the next. And these people get not these people, they're people just like you and me, but they get so down that they get so low that just to go get a new license or just to go get a new ID, you have to jump through the hoops, and you have to go across town. And when you don't have a car and when you don't have a place to stay at night, it makes it very, very difficult. And especially when you have no money to get that ID or get that driver's license. So, they're people that are precious people.
Right.
They're precious.
Mark, do you really see changes take place in people that you work with like this? Or, some of us, when you see somebody begging like that now, again, these elderly people down at Skyline, they have simply outlived their money.
The resources, yes.
I can remember when 65 years old was considered to be a very old man. Right. And now 75 and 80 seems like still pretty young and going strong. But when you think of these homeless type, you often think of those, that you really can't help. Do you feel like as a minister with a program like this, you're really making a change in people's lives?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, as we've said already, and you've heard Mary say, it's not easy. It's a very difficult ministry, and there's a lot of times you celebrate a few footsteps forward, and then there's always the footsteps back, it seems like. But, you know, we're there. We're there consistently on Friday night, and we're there providing folks a refuge, if you will, a safe place, a good place to come in and receive spiritual food as well as some physical food. And a big part of what Mary and her team of about 12 volunteers from the church who are there faithfully on Friday nights are doing is loving on people. Just what Jesus invited us to do and called us to do, and in very practical ways. So as they gather at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, they gather for prayer, they gather for a time of worship, a time of teaching, a message is brought, and a time of enjoying one another in worship, and then a meal as well. So I think it's a very complete ministry to folks that they can count on. And I'll tell you a story about one guy by the name of Juan. And Juan was a gentleman who first came to the breakfast and found out about us through that breakfast. And then as Friday night, Alive was birthed, and that was Mary's vision in her heart. And she came with a lot of prayer and ideas. And thankfully, in March, we just celebrated our 3rd anniversary of that ministry. But Juan, he came, met Mary through that ministry, got involved in Friday Night Alive. He volunteers faithfully every week now himself. Mm-hmm. But he was living in a borrowed trailer in a man's garage, basically. And out of that, he was able to get his own place and still needed work. And so we just took this step and hired him as a part-time custodian at First Church. We wanted to give him a shot at using his skills to benefit the kingdom and to be a blessing to him. And he continues to work. In fact, he's full-time on our staff currently and doing a good job for us. But one thing that was kind of fun was when he first got involved in the ministry, and he had very little resources, he bought a brightly colored orange fish at a convenience store for like $1.89. And this brightly colored fish he gave to Mary to give to me, so that I would have a gift from him in appreciation for Friday Night Live ministry. So she passed that on to me. And Glenn, if you come into my office today, you'll see on the corner of my desk this bright orange fish. And, of course, the kids love it. They love to play with it when they come into the office. But I get to tell the story of Juan, a guy who was on the street without hope, without help, and now is an active member of our church family, an active person who's a part of this society and contributing back.
Interesting. I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio, visiting today with Mark McAdow. Mark is the senior pastor, First United Methodist Church, located downtown Oklahoma City, right there on the corner of 4th and North Robinson. Mary Walbert, who is the coordinator of the Friday Night Live program, talking about a new program they got there at First Church, trying to help the homeless and those in need. We got to take a break. We're coming right back, so please don't go away.
You're nobody till somebody loves.
Have you ever had a problem, but it seemed like there was no one who could help? You spent hours calling around, being referred from one place to the next. Well, not anymore. I want to tell you about a free and easy-to-use service in Oklahoma. 211 is a simple 3-digit phone number to get help or to give help when you don't know where to turn. Dialing 211 only takes a minute, and you are connected with a caring Oklahoman who will help you find the assistance you've been looking for. With access to over 13,000 programs, Heartline 211 can connect you to local resources for many different needs, including health care, food, counseling, rent assistance, disability assistance, job services, and much more. 211 is a service of Heartline, a United Way partner agency. 211, the right first call to get help or give help 24 hours a day.
Hi, my name's Jason Ledlow, president of UT Phone, the ultimate telephone service. We're proud to be a sponsor of Senior World Radio with Glenn Howard. UT Phone is dedicated to providing Oklahomans affordable telephone service all across our great state. We have Lifeline home phone service starting at just $1.95. That's right, just $1.95, and most of Oklahoma's seniors qualify for this reduced home phone service. They get to keep their old home phone number, and it even includes long distance. Another great feature of UT Phone's customers really like is that it includes repair service. That's right, any repairs at no additional charge. With many telephone services charging $40 to $50 per month, it makes sense to switch your service to UT Phone. This service is a federal program that is provided through the Universal Service Fund. There is only one per household, so make it UT Phone's home phone service for $1.95. Give us a call at 800-996-0098. Again, call 800-996-0098.
I've made up my mind.
Welcome back to Senior World Radio. I'm Glenn Howard, visiting this morning with Mark McAdow. Mark is the senior pastor of the First United Methodist Church, located down on the corner of 4th and Robinson. In fact, Mark, I believe First Church is probably the first church in Oklahoma City. If I recall correctly, the other day you celebrated your 125th, is that right?
That's right, Glenn. Absolutely right. We believe that we are the oldest church of Oklahoma City on its original property.
Okay.
Because we began 1 week after the land run in April of 1889. So, yeah, we had a wonderful 125th celebration with our bishop and other guests who were with us. And I think you were there too, Glenn.
Oh, yes, I was.
You and your bride. So it was a blessing to have you guys there.
Well, you're about as gray-headed as they come, but you're not 125 years old, I don't think. But it was a lot of fun for us down there. Of course, I'm very envious of anybody who's got hair, just not automatically. And also, Mary Walbert is with us today. Mary is the coordinator of the Friday Night Live. Mary, how did you switch from breakfast in the mornings to Friday Night Live?
That's a good question. No. Well, when it's a calling and when the Lord has put it upon your heart, He just shows you the different roads to take. And I think that there's one story I want to share real quickly, too. It's about another gentleman that we met through the breakfast. This man, he called it his Cadillac, but he pushed a grocery cart. And this grocery cart was full. And the time that I met this gentleman was during the winter time. And I've had 5 winters now that I've worked with, 2 with the breakfast and now 3 with the ministry. But worked through the winter. Winter time's a hard time, a really hard time, when you have no place to go to sleep, when you don't have a home. And this gentleman lived 3 blocks from First Church. And my husband and I would go to find this gentleman. He lived behind a dumpster. This man, when he was a young boy, had a real serious accident and caused a serious head damage. And he was also a black man growing up in the 60s as a child. So he had a huge hurdle to jump through in the 60s, let alone having a disability, which led him to just some violent things. But he's the sweetest, dearest, kindest man that you'll ever meet. And what has happened through the last 5 years is, Maury, this gentleman got off the street. He is living in an apartment. He has part-time jobs. Great victories in his life. He's been reunited with his family, with his children, and and he's come to church. He's a member at First Church, and these are people. These are precious people.
Yes.
Just like you and me, and the ministry. And we have got a great team. I want to say this real quickly, that all of our volunteers, and we're all volunteers, and they're there every Friday night to serve the homeless, not only a great home-cooked meal, but we're friends.
Right.
We have a relationship with these people.
That's the good part of it.
Yeah, and like Pastor Mark said, they come to the church because it's a safe place. It's their place. Mm-hmm. It's not just a place. It really has become, over the past 3 years in the ministry, a safe place that they call home. And it's just a blessing. And
Mark, you keep using the word, and Mary does too, the word ministry.
Mm-hmm.
What's your biblical basis for something like this? Why are you doing this?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks, Glenn. I'd just like to share a few verses, if that's okay.
Sure.
Out of Matthew 25. And in my Bible, these are all in red. And so that makes them pretty important. Those are the words of Christ as we understand them. And this is what he says, beginning with verse 31 of Matthew 25. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he'll sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or feed you, or thirsty, or give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, and invite you in, or needing clothes, and clothe you? When did we see you sick, or in prison, and go to visit you?" And the king will reply, "I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me."
Wow, now you really pushed us all under conviction, haven't you?
That's right.
Well, I think it's true. I
Yeah.
mean, we're trying to live out what the Scripture teaches.
Living the
and
gospel.
Live in the gospel in very practical and helpful ways. And, it's not easy. And quite honestly, probably some in our church are not necessarily all that excited about that aspect of our ministry. But, we're trying to do what the Lord Jesus taught us to do. Be
Mary,
faithful to him.
I like what you said about building relationships. Many people most people, I think, have very compassionate hearts. I must confess I get irritated when somebody in front of me stops to give a little bit of money to somebody who is out there begging and blocking traffic. Get out of my way, I'm in a hurry. But the whole idea of getting to know these people, it's one thing to throw a buck at somebody and go on and never see them again.
Right.
It's another thing to meet with them week after week after week after week. Get to know them, to know their name, to know where they're from, to know their background. In fact, the other day I was visiting with one of our Oklahoma City Housing Authority facilities here in town. And at Christmas, no, I guess it's Thanksgiving, they decided to fix a big dinner and to invite homeless people in for this big turkey dinner. And they went out into this was up here in the northwest part of town, and went out into the woods back behind that facility and found a lot of these guys back there living, camping out, surviving in the sticks as best they could. Invited them out, gave them this big dinner. The thing that really amazed them was that a high percentage of these were veterans.
Yes.
People who had served the government, people who had major positions, and simply had gotten lost in the process.
Right.
Well,
and needed a way out.
right. Well, and that's what that's what I was talking about, or trying to talk about earlier, is that when you lose, and especially like our veterans, and yes, we have a lot of veterans, trauma and the different circumstances that these people go through. Some of the stories that that these men and women, you've got abuse of all different kinds,
Right.
and which is darkness. And that's why, like in our mission statement, that's why Jesus has come to preach good news to the poor, so that we can set the captives free, so we can release from the darkness, because these people are in darkness because drug addictions, alcohol abuse, all the different things, you can go down the list. When these people get so down and low, down and out, our enemy, we war against, this in the spirit, and he keeps this darkness, and what's great about this, what the Lord's been doing at First Church, he is setting captives free.
Amen.
This is one reason why I'm very thankful for one of our sponsors. We've got a sponsor, the UT Phone Company, which provides discount phone service to seniors or to low-income people. In fact, some of our seniors, if their income qualifies, can get telephone service for as little as $1 a month. So it's really nice to have somebody that's concerned. But
Yes.
Mark, you mentioned a while ago about helping somebody that you provided a job for there at the church.
Yes.
Are you working with employers and finding opportunities to help people you're working with find employment in other facilities or other possibilities? Or if we've got listeners who have a job open, they could use somebody and would like to hire somebody that you're working with, tell us how they could get in touch with you and how they can become involved in part of this program.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. We're trying to help folks in a lot of different ways, helping them with doctor's visits, with medication. We're providing transportation, and we are trying to provide jobs for those people who are able to work, willing to work, and we'll be glad to have folks, if they have jobs available. We would love to have them give us a call at First Church. Number's 239-6493. And you can call and leave a message there, or you can talk to me, or I'll get you in contact with Mary. She works directly with our homeless population. But, yeah, we would love to have folks help us, or if you want to come down and just see what we do on a Friday night, 6 o'clock, come on down and be a part of it. You can help serve a meal. You can just get to know some folks, just be a part of the ministry, and then see if the Lord may be leading you to do more.
Mary, we've only got about a minute left, but I presume most of these people you're talking to are men. Do you have very many women that you're working with?
There's a much smaller percentage of women, thank goodness, because a lot of the women stay in the shelters. One thing that I did want to say, and that's there was a question posed that what benefit is this ministry to First Church? And I just want to say that I see that as the benefit. The church is Christ, and we're to be a light. We're to be a beacon of light to all. And I think that the benefit to First Church is that we can be an example for all the other churches downtown, that to maybe help them or show them to branch out and to take the risk and to reach out to the homeless of Oklahoma City, because the light will dispense that darkness. It will get rid of that darkness. And it is. It is, isn't it, Pastor?
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Mark, I'm impressed with what you're doing. First of all, I appreciate your heart, because every person is valuable in the sight of God. I'm truly convinced of that.
Absolutely.
And some are easier to work with than others. Some there's a greater challenge. But
Yes.
you know, some of our people, I think God places a calling in people's lives and gives them a desire. And I think we may have some listeners
Yes, I
who
hope
will
so.
show up Friday night and say,
Great.
yeah, let me help
Great.
out with this.
Love to have
I
them.
appreciate you coming in. I'm Glenn Howard, Senior World Radio. We've run out of time. We got to go. But, hey, I'm so glad you were with me today. I hope you'll tune in again same time next week. Until then, be kind to somebody, especially